The last time we showed you the OnPoint Dyno 350Z, we half-jokingly called it the most powerful, naturally aspirated VQ in the world, and now things are getting pretty darn serious. I think we can actually make that claim, or at least we will once it's on the dyno. So last time we had this on the dyno, Sasha, it made right around 400 at the wheel, I think, which wasn't the high water mark for your old engine. I think it made like a peak.
I don't even remember what we made. It might have even been
425.
Yeah, the highest we've seen on the old engine was 422 or something like that.
Okay. And since then, as a matter of fact, when we tested it last, you had changed up the ITPs to a bigger setup, and it lost some power, and you jokingly said, oh, well, we'll just fix that by porting the heads and putting bigger cams in it and changing the header.
Yeah.
Change everything to suit the ITBs, and ironically, you've kind of done that.
Although, to be fair, we did fix some issues we had since that video.
Okay.
And the big ITBs did make back almost the same power.
Did they?
As the smaller ones had made.
Okay, just refresh our memory, what size ITBs did you go from small to big?
So they were 53.5.
Okay.
That made the most power originally.
Yeah.
And then when we did the video, it was with 57.
Okay, we'll put a link in the top right corner if you guys want to go and see that. But now everything is completely changed, really, isn't it? This is a whole new rebuild, a whole new engine.
Yeah, like the last engine was a fairly simple VQ.
Right.
It was pretty much just pistons and cams for the most part. And then the external parts.
Right.
This is a full effort engine build now.
Okay. So run us down through what's happened, maybe top to bottom. What do we have? What are we looking at here?
Well, the first thing I have to say is that this engine and the design of it, it's the brainchild of Jim Wolf technology. So
Okay.
As much as I'd like to take credit for some of the things that we did with the development of this engine, it was more like conversations that may have moved things in a certain direction. But really the guys at Jim Wolf have all of this knowledge and all this experience, and they really tied it together with, what we thought would work best, or what they thought would work best from all of their experience with all kinds of different racing engines and experience over the years. So yeah, it's a pretty special motor. I mean, it started out with a massive stroke crankshaft that they had sitting on the shelf for a project that they never used. They kind of were like, well, maybe one day we'll build a 4.2 liter VQ, and had this Bryant crankshaft sitting there. And so we did some custom Curlo rods that are basically S2000 rods.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then JE pistons.
Okay.
The JE pistons are really cool. They only have 2 rings. So one of the main kind of areas we wanted to work on with this engine was friction.
Yeah.
So hopefully 2 rings.
2 rings from 3 typically.
Exactly.
That's just reducing your frictional losses.
Yep.
So is it which of those 3 rings? You obviously still have an oil ring and a top ring.
That's
so the
right.
middle ring you've ejected.
Yep.
You have a shorter skirt on the piston.
Shorter skirt on the piston.
You've taken a bunch of weight out of the piston. As a result.
The piston's super lightweight. It looks very like pro race car exotic.
And it's
N8 piston.
What compression ratio?
We're over 15 to 1.
15 to 1 compression.
Yeah.
Oh my
And it
God.
sounds like madness, but you have to understand when you've got big cams and you've got a lot of overlap, the dynamic compression, it's not so insane.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon for example, the 911 RSR GTLM car is around 15-ish as well. And those run on fairly low octane unleaded fuel.
Really?
Yeah, so I think we'll be okay. Yeah, the heads have been ported, like tons of work's gone into the heads. Clark's from Jim Wolf Technology.
Yeah.
The guys have machined the buckets on the intake side and put in larger intake buckets, and what that allows us to do is run a more aggressive ramp on the camshaft profile.
Okay.
Because basically what happens is the more aggressively you want to slap open that bucket, the wider spread you need from the center.
Okay.
So this is something that they've experimented on other engines, and you're just limited by the diameter of those small buckets. Can't go any more aggressive with the cam. So we literally had to make the holes bigger and put in custom buckets, and that meant a whole bunch of custom work. You can imagine you're starting to
It's a cascade
fall down the rabbit's hole.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole engine is like that. I mean, everything almost from literally the dry sump pan all the way up almost, I would say, to the camshaft itself. Everything is like less than 1 millimeter from being a clearance problem.
Wow.
Like we have the crankshaft just fitting on the pan. We have the crankshaft just clearing the block and the oil squirters, and the piston is the reliefs on the intake just barely fit where the ring grooves are.
Okay.
And then, we just barely fit the valve that we wanted to use with the stack up that we could get for the spring and then the retainer. And so everything was just if you go from bottom to top, you can literally see.
Yeah.
We basically use every millimeter of deck height. Everything. It's just, there's no space left. So yeah, everything, even with the porting, the engine's at the limit in many different areas.
Yeah. Which raises the question of reliability. I guess this being such an experimental motor, you just have no idea what the lifespan of it might be.
Yeah, well, the guys at Jim Wolf are really cool. They gave me a 50,000 kilometer, 10-year warranty.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
You got it.
Yeah. From a reliability standpoint, there's nothing in this engine that should make it really fragile.
Right.
If it works, it should just work for a long time.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah. So that kind of covers the long block more or less? Is there anything that else has changed since the last time we've seen it? The headers are new.
Right, so one of the main things that we would have liked to have tested with the old engine was we always suspected the headers were too small. Mm-hmm. When we originally built the headers, they were kind of designed for 330 horsepower.
Yeah.
We did cut and increase the size kind of the last, 10 inches or so, and we did a bigger collector, and we did gain about 10 horsepower from that.
Okay.
So now these headers are done from the ground up because we moved the engine back 4 inches.
Yeah.
And so they're 2 inches right off the head, and then they step up to 2 1/8 of an inch. So they're big boys.
Big boys, yeah.
The water neck we've kind of changed up a little bit now. It's got a low profile temperature sensor, and the tube that runs through the valley, we've welded a -20 weld nut on and done this line.
Big boy line here, yeah.
Because there used to be a big elbow here and a big welded thing that was quite ugly. So we got rid of all of that, and this way the ducting from the radiator will just, we wanted to try and clear everything out from the front of the engine as possible.
Okay. Guess now's the time for the big question, Sasha. How much power do you expect this thing to make?
I'm hesitant to even say.
I'm sure you are.
I think
then I'll say it for you. He's expecting 500 horsepower at the wheel, everyone. Whether or not he admits it, that's what he wants to get to. And I think that's not an unrealistic number. We were talking earlier about how Porsche's RSR motors, which are 4 liters, are making 560. And there's a lot of similarities between what you've done here and what they do with that motor. So to get to the 500 mark is maybe not unrealistic.
I want to say, but it's kind of how it goes. We've always been so far away from what other engines should or can do. So, we've definitely put a lot at this engine where before the engine was pretty stock.
Yeah.
So to be able to predict how that's going to play out, it's just may as well just guess.
Yeah.
So in a couple of weeks we'll know. And until then, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I opened my mouth, and we'll come back. Obviously, when this goes in the car and is on the dyno, we will be back to cover that. So you guys will know soon enough what those numbers are, and there'll be development from there, like we talked about with the airboxes and all that. And obviously, it still has the Quaife sequential gearbox in there, which is a magical device to use.
When you push it the wrong way, when you want to shift.
I still wake up at night dreaming about shifting that gearbox. So good. But you actually have something even cooler in mind once you get this all tuned to your satisfaction.
Yeah,
you put something in between the gearbox and the engine. Something completely unexpected. What madness do you have planned for us here?
Yeah, man, hybrid system.
Hybrid system.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the clutch and flywheel.
Okay.
And we're going to put a motor in there that's done by Phi Power, and these guys are in Switzerland, and they make motors for Formula E.
Okay.
So we're talking about the pinnacle, top level,
right.
Kind of power density for motors.
Yeah.
And the idea is basically, if we're making the car hybrid,
yeah.
The Z is already a little bit overweight.
Sure, she's a bit portly.
So
yeah.
We're going to add probably 200 pounds in a hybrid system.
Okay.
We can't just put that 200 pounds on top of Kels.
Okay.
Kel's got to come down a bit, and then the 200 maybe becomes 150, 100.
Okay.
So if we can get rid of the starter, if we can get rid of the clutch, if we can get rid of most of the weight on the flywheel, if we can get rid of the clutch pedal, the hydraulics, that's a good chunk of weight.
That is. That's at least 50 pounds.
Yeah. And so, I kind of got thinking through it, and I was like, well, why do I need a clutch? Mm-hmm. Theoretically, I don't need a clutch.
Not with a sequential gearbox?
You know, like if I want to be able to put it in neutral or disconnect the drivetrain, okay, well I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it should work fine. So that's kind of the idea.
Okay.
So we're hoping to add about 200 horsepower with that system. The goal is for it to be able to run 2 or 3 laps at full battery power for time attack, and then run as like a KERS system if we wanted to run longer than that, where it would, the battery, you know, state of charge would kind of just float, and it would just use and power whatever it gets back under braking from regen. So yeah, we'll have all kinds of crazy logic and crazy nerding out going on. I've already written like I would say 90% of the software. It's like flashed in the ECU already. I've already been kind of testing some features.
Yes.
So you know, it's kind of in my head, and it's written down, and I think it's going to be like super cool. So a couple months, we'll see if it works or if it all just falls apart. But if it all comes together like I've got in my head, I feel like it's going to be pretty cool.
For those of you who might be questioning Sasha's dreams, he is able to execute these things. He put his Lotus, what model? Evora? Lotus Evora. He converted to a full electric motor. We did a bunch of videos on that, so go check that out. It's all Motec controlled with a Swiss intermediary in there helping. So you've figured a lot of this out already. So this is not pie in the sky stuff. This is stuff that he's done, and I think if anyone can pull this off, you've got a good shot at pulling it off.
Thanks, man. The other thing that is really helpful in this case is the inverter that we're using. Like all of those electronics, like we've all used that. We've used all of that before, and it's all kind of sorted out. So we're pretty much just putting, like running an engine that we've run with a Motec before, and running an inverter, which we've run with Motec together before. Just put it in one ECU. Right. Just kind of combine the softwares. Yeah. And then write some hybrid code on just how to, like, you know, have fun nerding out with how we apply power and, you know, do that fun stuff.
How to torque fill with that motor versus
whatever we want to do. But basically, you know, if you look at it, the main functionality we've done before in both cases, so
pretty wild.
Should be okay.
All right, Sash, you already mentioned that the engine moved back 4 inches, and I can see how you've done that on the front subframe. The splitter, though, is new, and you've sort of it's not V-mounted technically, is it? But you've
angle mounted. Slant mount.
The radiator. What's going on here?
Yeah, I think the splitter was on, but anyway, this splitter we've run before.
Have you? Okay.
Yep. So we were just modifying it now to get some ducting, and then the radiator we wanted to, you know, bring it down as much as possible to get a good shot out. Now with the engine moved back, we've got lots of space to run a nice big duct. Yeah. And then we moved the catch tank over to the side so that this way, you know, this big catch tank used to sit right in the middle before. That, So now it's over out of the way of that rad duct. So the whole idea was just to get space for that.
You'll obviously duct this all in out of the hood, get some more downforce out of the front end of the car.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. And inside you mentioned you've got some new pedals and a new harness to show us?
Yeah, so Tilton's come on board, which we're really excited about. And so now we're finally moving to an underfoot, you know, proper pedal assembly and getting rid of the factory pedals.
Okay.
So we're actually mounting those, you know, way over to the left. So the brake pedal is kind of where the clutch would be, and the throttle pedal is kind of almost where the brake would be.
Really?
Yeah, just because, you know, I'm left foot braking and don't really use a clutch. So rather than having my right feet all the ways crooked and over to the side, it's kind of more of a go-kart position. Okay. Yeah, so we've built already the chassis harness that has all the connections for the hybrid system. Okay. So everything for the battery, the inverter, all these things are already built in, and the M150. And what we've done in this harness, which is kind of cool, is we've made it fully backwards compatible. So it still works with our old M800 engine bay wiring harness. Okay. So we can just use the old harness for now, or in the future, if we want to put the M800 back in, we can just put the old chassis harness back in.
Well, once he's gone through the process of a first startup and maybe a little break-in, we will show up here with our cameras and listen to that thing rip on the dyno.
All right.
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I'm so excited to see what kind of power it makes and what kind of music it makes, because that thing does sound epic. At least it used to in its old version, and I can only imagine this is going to sound even better. So
I don't know. The sound, I hate to say it, but the sound might take a step backwards, because that big stroke, I like that kind of high-pitched exotic sound. Yeah. We might lose some of that, but it's worth it for horsepower.
It makes 500 at the wheel. That'll be a good trade-off.
Right.
So stay tuned, everyone, for that. We're very excited to share that with you. And in the meantime, give Sasha and us a thumbs up as some encouragement for continuing to evolve this car, which was already a super fast car. So stoked to see where it ends up, both in terms of power and lap times. And we will bring all that to you very soon.